Good afternoon. I'm so excited. This is episode number 7. So this is the lucky number 7 here that we have on the Lighthouse podcast. I have the great honor of having a great host. I'm hosting a great guest today, Chad Scott. Chad is a member of our local DC National Speakers Association. He was doing a presentation for a TED Talk that really resonated with me about being resilient. And he'll talk more about resilience during our chat today. But let me give you a little bit of bio. I mean, he has a very impressive bio here. Chad knows about the struggle of questioning where success is possible. He is an avid fan of Dr. Vincent Norman Peale, The Power of Positive Thinking. He shifted his mindset from maybe not thinking you can do it to working alongside nuclear physicists at Lawrence Livermore. And yes, I think they're pretty smart out there in California. I've been to Lawrence Livermore at least one time, and it's called the smartest square mile on earth. He started the Positive Cavalier Institute, a nonprofit tackling youth mental health stigmas, where you train professionals to break from burnout and to pursue their passions and without sacrificing their well-being. Chaz is very accomplished. He's got many awards and things for Black Enterprise, the BE Martin Man. He was also nominated to be top 30 under 30 for HBCU Buzz and the recipient of the Positive People Award by the Baltimore Times. He's been featured in many areas, including Forbes, CBS News, Fox 5, and the Thrive Global. And we have a common bond here. We both went to HBCUs. He went to Hampton always claims they're the mother school to Tuskegee. I'm a Tuskegee guy. Actually, I guess in theory that is correct. He has a BS in computer science and a master's in cybersecurity. It is my honor to introduce Chaz to the Lighthouse podcast. And also, be on the lookout. In October, he's doing the TED Talk. He's in training. It's like Rocky 8 or Rocky 5. He's in training for a TED Talk. And is there a TED Talk in the DC area? It's somewhere in the DC area, if I remember correctly.
Yes, sir. TEDx Warrington. So Warrington, Virginia.
Great. So welcome to the Lighthouse podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Neville. Really appreciate the opportunity.
So you don't have any opening comments? I mean, kind of give people just a short snippet. I mean, you're very accomplished both in speaking and also you do other things outside of your speaking career. You just want some highlights on things about you?
Yeah, sure. I'm a recovering workaholic. We could start there. So to be blunt,
Hold up. I don't know. This is a great ordinance because we're both based out of the DC metro area. And I think they have a lot of workaholics here, but you are recovering.
I am recovery. I just got out, as part of the recovery 8A program. Anyway, the point is, I think a lot of the work is really centered around sort of my own story of burning out, watching others burn out, and I got to a point where it was just waking up, going to work, falling asleep at the wheel, going to a job that wasn't fulfilling. And that really completely restructured my entire life. And I know we could dive a little bit more deep into this, but, I constantly stress on how to live a fulfilling life, but also a productive life. And that's sort of the work that I do.
Okay. So hopefully you didn't literally fall asleep at the wheel, because if I see you on 395, I make sure I get off of the exit before that one.
No, I was so, I guess we could get into it now, but it was back in 2000. I had just graduated my master's from Hampton, and I was starting sort of my first official job. And I knew I wanted to climb the ranks within, the government or corporation. The job at the time was in the government. And I was building a nonprofit at the same time, providing mental wellness resources to youth. And then, at the same time, full-time job, and had an hour and a half long commute. And if anybody's in the DMV area, that hour and a half long commute can weigh on you. And I got to a point where I was falling asleep at the wheel, heading over to the bridge, going across the National Harbor from Virginia to Maryland. And, it was brutal because I was probably getting about 4 or 5 hours of sleep, waking up early, going to bed late, trying to achieve and accomplish. And yet, one of the things I started to realize was I was waking up with basically sweating, anxiety, about the day, and I realized I just wasn't taking care of myself. And that started to affect how I would show up as a brother, as a son, as a leader, as a friend. And I realized, wait a minute, because I'm unhappy and stressed, not only do I not feel good, but when I'm around other people, they don't feel good. And that's when that light bulb came off. I remember my dad, he was living in Crofton, Gambles, Maryland at the time, and I was living at his house, but also at another friend's house because my commute was so long. But I remember I think we were about to go into the movies, and he asked me, he said, Chaz, are you okay? And if anybody ever asks you if
Mhm.
you're okay and they know you, they know something's wrong. And it was at that moment where I realized, no, I'm not okay. And I'm trying to make this all make sense because what I was told was get the house, get the car, get the degree, get the white picket fence, have
Mhm.
2 children, and
Mhm.
you're going to be happy and fulfilled. What I found was that is not true. And not only that, I wasn't enjoying the journey and something needed to change. And one of the analogies I always use is what's the point of working so hard? You're climbing up this mountain. You get to the peak of the mountain. Not only have you been climbing the wrong mountain, but you haven't been enjoying the journey. So it's like, what's the point?
Mhm.
So I completely restructured my life and I probably read every book I could in positive psychology, neuroscience, metaphysics, spirituality. I studied every religion because I wanted to change my relationship with rest, with success, with happiness, completely restructure my life because what I was told wasn't true and I wasn't enjoying my life. And that sort of eventually led to sort of the coaching that I do now, the seminars, as well as my book, Success Starts Within, which is near and dear to my heart because I've been through it and I've seen people go through it.
That's amazing. I always hear it, and I heard this maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. There is a expression, "There is no dare there." I mean, it's kind of basically the same thing you were saying. So you climb for wherever it is. There may be the next promotion, the bigger house in the suburbs, but then once you get there, you're trying to go for the next thing. So there's never a dare. You're always trying to go for the next best and greatest thing. So I really do appreciate that. So often you speak about resilience, and we talked about a little bit in your opening comments. In your own words, how do you find resilience, just not in leadership, but in life?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I could rattle off like a description of resilience, but I sort of like to define it in a way where it makes sense to the listener from like a story perspective. So for me personally, I recently went through a divorce, right? And anybody who's ever been to a divorce, they're not easy, no matter how, what happened or how it shakes out. But the point is, during that time period, my threshold for handling stress was very low. Okay. Now, there's points in life where either you go through a divorce, you lose a job, something happens at work and it throws you and knocks you off your feet. There are points in life where there's a substantial amount of stress and your nervous system has to react. Okay. Now, one of the things where sort of resilience comes into play is being able to overcome stress much more effectively so you can get the job done. And get the job done could either be showing up as leader in the workplace or getting the job done means picking up your child after school, after work at 5 p.m. Resilience is this new term, not new, but it's definitely rised in terms of popularity during the COVID pandemic. Is what are the practices that you can implement in your own life to increase your threshold for handling stress so you can live a better life? That's it. Some of those resilience tools are some of the tools that you have probably heard on podcasts and social media for years. Meditation, breath work, being able to challenge your beliefs and recognize that there's only so much that you can control, controlling the controllable. So there's also a psychological aspect to it. Resilience is a way to ensure that you can show up as your best self despite the stress or despite the adversity that you may be going through or trying to overcome.
I appreciate. Are you big into meditation and breath work in those areas?
I am huge in that. Matter of fact, we just had our nonprofit Positively Caviar, which you mentioned. Every year we do a back to school mental wellness workshop, and this is youth from all over DC that came out in Southeast at the Rise Demonstration Center. We had Fox 5 DC there, WSA 9, just, telling people about the event. But it's an all-day Saturday event, and we're trying to introduce these tools to underserved communities, particularly middle schoolers, resilience tools, meditation, breath work. And I wish I knew about these tools when I was in middle school and high school. I would have a completely different perspective on how to manage my own life and how to show up as my best self. I didn't get introduced to these tools until I had to go seek them. And that's typically what happens. Either in your journey in life, they call it the hero's journey. You either learn through an extreme amount of pain or you learn through inspiration. Typically, the human nature is to learn through an extreme amount of pain and then you change.
Right, right.
And that's what happened to me and most of us. And anyway, I share that our nonprofit because we're trying to introduce these tools at an early age from a preventative standpoint, not wait until something happens. In my case, I had to wait until something happened. I wasn't happy. I was depressed. I was waking up with anxiety. I wasn't being the leader, the brother, the significant other, as well as the community member that I know I myself to be. I needed to change. And there was a significant amount of emotional, psychological pain that caused me to go seek these resources. So I meditate 25 minutes a day. I do not leave the house without doing some type of meditation because I see the benefits it provides me when I do it. And then when I don't do it, I see the negative effects of it. So the advantage is, thinking clearly, being able to manage stress more effectively. I'm happier. So yeah, I meditate and do breath work every morning.
That's amazing. I'm into it, and a couple of listeners know, so I was going through this caregiving for both parents, to kind of go through the medical challenges and spending many hours ICU in different hospital times. It gets very stressful. If I hadn't done the meditation, I think at one time I was up to like 500 straight days of doing it. I don't know. I mean, I had a lot of faith-based activities and friends were reaching out. The meditation definitely kind of got me through some of those stressful times because, that is a thing. And it really helped me out dramatically also.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I mean, you were stacking it up. One of the things, especially with, people that I kind of talk to or help people is just to get introduced to meditation and breath work. A lot of people have not experienced the benefits yet. So it's almost like you need to prove to them first how it can benefit. So you just introduce it to them and then you see the benefits and then you're encouraged to do more of it. And I think that's where we have to get at, especially in communities where you're not really exposed to some of these tools. Once you're exposed and then you see the benefits, then there's the motivation to say, I got to go meditate today because I'm not feeling well. And that's what we want to get at. Neville, you brought up a great point where, during that tough time period, you had some tools to fall back on. And that's what we want to get to. Whether you're a leader, whether you are a mother or a father, whether you're the leader of the household or the community, you have to have tools to fall back on because we know that life is not going to go the way in which we expect. There's going to be stress. There's going to be adversity. And you have to have tools to fall back on so that you can regulate your nervous system. One of the things I talk about in the book is if you literally can regulate your nervous system, you can master your destiny. And what do I mean by that? If somebody pisses you off or cuts you off on 395 or 495 in DC or Maryland or Virginia, you're not going to let that external circumstance affect how you feel internally. You are going to direct your thought. You are going to direct your emotions. You're not going to let that external experience affect how you feel. You're managing your nervous system. You're managing, how you feel, not allowing other people to make you feel a certain way. And that's what really makes you dangerous in life. Mm-hmm. It's the fact that people don't affect you. Now, that's not to say that people won't affect you, but having more influence over how you feel is key to a successful, happy, and joyful life.
That's powerful. That is very powerful. Kind of directing your way, because I know there's probably multiple people that have probably swerved in front of my car trying to get that extra 3 minutes in so they get that staff meeting. And if you're not careful, you get really burnt by that. And then it can throw off at least 3 or 4 hours of your morning. Like, I just can't believe that guy or that lady. So the meditation can help you shift. So for you, how has, just your definition of resilience, I mean, you alluded to a little bit before? I mean, how has it changed over the years for you?
I think it's changed in a sense that life is never perfect. So, seeing how that's the case, I always have tools to help me maintain stability. So, for instance, right now, we just finished some of the work we're doing with the nonprofit. I've got a TEDx talk coming up, so I'm trying to memorize a 10-minute speech. I've never done that before. I'm actually really nervous, to be completely honest with you. I've never done that. So I think there's times in life where there are so many ups and downs, whether it be an adversity, whether it be a new challenge, whether it be a new goal that you want to achieve. And the first thing that's going to happen is when you're trying to achieve that new goal or trying to overcome adversity, your nervous system is going to say, this makes me feel uncomfortable. I'm
Mhm,
out.
mhm, mhm.
And you have to, me, speaking for myself, at least in these circumstances, you have to have some type of awareness on knowing which tools to fall back on. So if I'm stressed about, for instance, trying to learn this 10-minute speech for a TEDx talk or anxious about it, what can I do to calm my nerves so that I can, Chaz, just read the script, write it over and over again, just execute. But I think oftentimes many of us, especially when we're trying to achieve things that we've never done before or do things that we've never done before, our nervous system's sort of, it's new, it's uncomfortable. So resilience is this mental muscle that you can continue to build. And actually, from a neuroscience perspective, as you deepen those neural pathways in the brain, not only do you get physically stronger, right? But also, when you go to the gym, you also get mentally stronger. You're able to withstand stress much more effectively. I probably, if I didn't have any of these tools right now, some of the weight that I feel right now, if I had that same weight 4 years ago, I probably would not be able to sustain who I am. And that just goes to show you that the more that you learn about your body, the more that you learn about negative self-talk, meditation, breath work, the more that you learn about and discover yourself, the easier it is to show up much more effectively to life. So you can be a better leader, so you can be a better parent, and just to enjoy this life experience. I personally believe that we're on this earth to enjoy this life experience. But the number one goal to do that is knowing who you are and how your body operates.
Well, that's great. So when you work with leaders, how do they usually get resilience wrong at first? That maybe they're thinking you should push hard, push more, like you say, get 3 hours of sleep. I got to be resilient and just push through no matter what. So how do they get this maybe wrong when they're trying to do the right thing?
Yeah, Neville, you bring up an excellent point, and I think you're hitting at something that I've been trying to do in terms of changing the relationship of what success and achievement actually means as it relates to resilience. Many people have told us if you want something, you have to have work ethic and you have to grind and you have to lose sleep. You've
Mm-hmm.
got to be in this hustle culture, this grind culture. I'll sleep when I die, right? So, one of the things that I try to challenge is number one, sciences, neuroscience, positive psychology, they're showing that the more that you pour into yourself, the easier success is. But not only that, you enjoy the journey too. I can't remember the researchers, but a couple years ago, they did this study on the people that are successful in life and happy versus people that aren't. And they showed that the people who had a higher level of vertical coherence in terms of achieving their goals much more effectively were those people that were taking care of themselves, their mind, body, and soul. And which that suggested that the people who are happy and living an effective, healthy life are the people that are taking care of themselves. So this whole notion of losing sleep to get things accomplished um, or not taking care of your body or not eating. I'm trying to change that relationship because new sciences are actually confirming the more that you pour into yourself, the easier it is for you to show up for life. And I'll give you an example even for myself. When I was kind of going through my journey, I started reading. Number one, it was Power of Positive Thinking, but then it came to sort of meditation and breath work and some neuroscience stuff and all this stuff. I was like, what is all this stuff? Spirituality. And I started to incorporate some of these practices, like a morning routine. I started researching all the celebrities and successful people that have morning routines, whether it be doing exercise, meditation, then doing some reading or listening to a podcast in the morning, I break it out into 3 different sections for myself. But I started to see the benefits after I started doing some of these things. And one of the things that I've started to sort of figure out is the more that you take care of yourself, you have more energy, you're more joyful, you're able to withstand stress much more effectively, and you're able to show up as yourself much more effectively. So this whole notion of I'll grind, I'll lose sleep. Studies have shown when you lose 2 to 3 hours of sleep each night, you suffer from a decline in terms of remembering, in terms of making better decisions. So your cognitive abilities are shortened up significantly, decline significantly when you don't get adequate enough sleep. And to be honest with you, I'm saying this to myself as
Okay.
well. I have a Whoop wristband, and this tracks my sleep and tells me my sleep debt and how much sleep I need each night because, depending on how much output you put out. And this has been a huge driver for me to make sure that I literally go to sleep at 10 p.m. at night and I wake up and have a full night's of sleep. So anyway, I share that. It's a change in how you think about sustainable success. Because if you want to sustain a goal-oriented life, if you want to sustain an organization and have people that you can lead in a coherent, sustainable way, you have to make sure that you're taking care of the number one and most important asset, and that's you. So that's sort of how I change that perspective.
Oh, that's great. I'm kind of on the club too. I don't have a Whoop ring. I had this Ring Con, so it's like the same thing. It monitors your sleep habits, and now before maybe I won't go into how many hours I was getting on sleep, but I've gone significantly better and in the right areas of sleep. So that is amazing. If you don't take care of yourself, trying to do the right thing, you won't be able to do the right thing because you're not taking care of yourself. So in this everyday lessons, right? In the middle of chaos and demands, maybe already talked about the daily habits you do as far as grounding. You have like 3 things you do every day that kind of keep you centered and focused. And I guess you're pretty faithful to those daily habits to kind of make sure your balance is together for starting your day out.
Yeah, no, I'm faithful, particularly because I know how I feel throughout the day when I don't do it.
Hmm.
And then I know how I feel when I do. So every morning, I typically wake up around 4:30 or 5, do some type of cardio. Right now it happens to be maybe like a mile run or something, or maybe I do on the elliptical. Get the cardio up because cortisol is so high in the morning in terms of the stress hormone. So you want to
Really?
manage that.
That's neuroscience based. So I shouldn't go to work till after 4 o'clock. This is education for me. I will not be showing up till after 10. But cortisol is higher in the morning.
Yeah, they say studies have shown that cortisol is higher in the morning.
Okay. Okay.
And it's interesting. I feel it typically in the morning as well in terms of stress or feeling like all the things that I need to accomplish that day, or maybe I didn't have a good night's sleep and that carries over to the morning. But typically cortisol levels are higher in the morning. So finding ways to sort of buy down that stress is important. So typically I do some type of cardio in the morning. Then I head into a 25-minute meditation. And I actually use an app called Timefully, and it just measures, it's just time basically, but it tracks everything. You press start, then 25 minutes, a bell rings. But typically in my meditations, I'm visualizing as well as meditating in terms of who I want to become. I'm thinking about, me being on the TEDx stage, or I'm thinking about I'm a coach, or I'm speaking here, I'm speaking there. One of the things I always tell people is meditation is an effective way to be able to influence your subconscious mind because your brain waves actually filter down from beta to alpha to theta to delta. And basically, this is a critical stage within the human consciousness where your subconscious mind is much more impressionable. So in terms of making changes in your habits and your subconscious mind, which stores a whole bunch of all your habits and your values and who you are as a person, it's all those unconscious habits that you don't even know that you do, but people tell you that you do.
Hmm.
If you want to change that, the best way to do that is to think about and visualize in your mind's eye who you want to become. Feel the feelings of who you want to become. And that's one of the things that I do. And there's tons of neuroscience. All the personal development speakers talk about this. And naturally, what tends to happen is you will start to, your conscious mind will start to model what you're programming in your subconscious mind. And so that's a little tip that I
Okay.
use to help create transformation in yourself. Because what I find is people say, I want that, but for some reason I'm not doing the things that I need to do to go get that. Why is that? What's wrong? Human nature is very interesting. We say we want that, but I'm not doing the things that are required to go get it. So one of the things to do is to help create that transformation to yourself to be able to have behaviors that are in alignment to who you want to become are some of these visualization techniques. And that's what I do every single day. So yeah, running, visualization, some type of meditation, 20 minutes, and then take a shower. And then I do 20 minutes of reading to kick off my day. And so those are my habits that I do each and every day. And I actually picked up these habits from people who are already doing them and who are already successful and happy. One of the things that I did when I wrote my book, Success Starts Within, is I really wanted to research people who were happy. I wanted to get around people who were happy, healthy, and productive. And one of the things I started to realize was they all have a set of practices, in particular in the morning, to fill up their cup before anybody else takes anything away from them. And I studied Serena Williams, I studied Barack Obama, I studied Michelle Obama, I studied Oprah, I studied Kris Jenner from, Kardashians. All of these people had a set of practices that they did in the morning to really be able to withstand the stress, but also create more joy and coherence in their life. And that's what I talk about in the book. And these are the practices I use every single day to create more coherence, to be more joyful, and to just show up as your best self.
That's amazing. I had Willie Jolly, who's a member of our NSADC chapter, and Willie's a well-renowned keynoter. He mentioned the same thing. Did a podcast with him a couple of months ago, and his main thing was, Neville, to kind of keep your balance together, you need to listen to something faith-based, inspirational in the morning. And I, was on all these podcasts is for the audience, for the Lighthouse podcast. Is also for me. I can take some notes. And so I started doing that. So before then I was listening to, I thought I was trying to be the smartest news junkie ever. I would listen to 40 to 45 minutes of news, and I think I was real smart when I got to work. But now he said it changed, and when he told me that first part of the year, I started listening to either some faith-based or some motivational music for me. And so when I got to work, I was like in a better mood. I was smarter before when I listened to the news, but I don't know if I was happier. So now I think I'm happier, and maybe I'm not dumber, but I just feel like I'm in a better routine when I do that now. So that really works for me.
Well, you bring up valuable points, Neville. I think, science is confirming this. The happier you are, the more productive you are. I do not do my best work when I'm not happy. And that's not to say that I always have to be happy to do my best work, but there are ways to create more joy. There are ways to make yourself feel better so that you can become more productive, so you can develop the behaviors that that you say that you want to accomplish, that are in alignment to. And, that's a critical point. The news, what I've seen, I don't even watch the news anymore, but the news, I mean, we know this. The only purpose of the news, at least from my perspective these days, is to spill out content to make you fearful to go buy more things. I think there are certain things that can assist you. It's great to understand sort of what's happening in the world. Don't get me wrong, you need to be educated and mindful of what's going on. But you can certainly get sucked into the news, and it can completely warp how you see certain things and actually make you feel like you can't accomplish or do some things because it's all negativity. So you say, well, if the world's going down the drain unconsciously, what's the point of me going to start this business? What's the point of
Right.
me changing this habit? What's the point of me showing up more effective with my wife? So it's like this unconscious thing that happens when we get filtered negative information. And I think being mindful of how that information affects you is key, because your subconscious mind is sucking up all that information, whether you realize it or not, and it's reinforcing who you think you are and the behaviors associated with it. So Willie Jolly is spot on with the inspirational content in the morning. I have to have some inspirational content as well.
Yeah, I still listen to the news, but I've scaled it down by 90%. So I listen just before I drive into the lot. I listen to 4 minutes, so at least I'm a good citizen of at least know what's going on, But then the other 36 minutes has been a game changer for me. So for you, you mentioned that you had this morning routine, afternoon. maybe you said morning. So is that like non-negotiable for you? It sounds like it is, but I just want to, I mean, it seems like it kind of centers you. So that's kind of like, this is what my commitment is to myself is
It is
non-negotiable.
It is a commitment, Neville. Unless the world is on fire and I don't have a space to sit down or run or read, which typically that's never happened before, right? That's the space I can control to the extent I can. It is a non negotiable. One of my favorite, I call him a virtual mentor. His name is Michael Beckwith. He was part of Oprah's 100 Super Soul spiritual leaders. But Michael Beckwith has this thing where he says, I take a shower every day, a physical shower.
Mhm,
I also need to take a
mhm,
mental shower in
mhm,
terms
mhm.
of meditation. And, seeing the benefits of a regular practice of a morning routine, it almost becomes very, I want to call it addictive, but you know what to fall back on when you're not feeling well. And, no matter what happened yesterday, I'm here today is sort of a ritual and a practice to honor myself. And the more that you're able to honor yourself on a daily basis, the easier it is to show up much more effectively in life.
Yeah, I really love those comments because Zig Ziglar, when he was alive, people were a little bit cynical on motivational speaking and talking and what does that give? And it's exactly what you're saying. He says, well, you take a shower every day. Why not do something that's beneficial for your mind to kind of get you together? And so why not do that? And so then they're like, well, maybe I should listen to some motivation. And so he had basically use the same analogy. So what advice would you give to people, their leaders, their moms, their high chargers? We alluded to this a little bit earlier, but they're saying they're too busy to do self-care. I can't do self-care now. Chaz is, I normally get up at 6:30. And now I gotta get up at 4:30. I gotta do this 90-minute routine. And then that's gonna add back more. Then I gotta get in front of a lady or a guy who's gonna get in front of me. I don't have any time for that. I mean, what do you tell someone about making out time because they're too busy for self-care?
Yeah, it's a good question. I can't remember the quote and how it goes. It's actually in my book, but I can't remember the quote to be blunt. But the quote goes something like, if you don't have 5 minutes to meditate, then you need a life. So basically, it's basically suggesting that everybody has 5 minutes. And I think one of the things that we often, especially when you read a lot of these personal development books, it almost makes it seem like I have to schedule out 40, 50, 70 minutes out of my day to get something done to nourish my mind, body, and soul. No way. You can just start very simple. A quick breath work exercise, a quick podcast on your way into work. Very easy, right? When I work with some of my coaching clients, the best way to introduce some of this is to look at your day currently. Are there areas in your day where there's some downtime or you can adjust and add something in? Typically what you find is there are some ways that you can adjust and add something in your day. Most people, if you look at my calendar, it is very diligent down to the 30 minutes, probably down to the 15 minutes. And the reason why that is because I've gotten to a point now where, time is the best currency. And if I can fill up my schedule and become much more present, much more effective, I'm able to utilize that time in a way that supports me. And one of the things I find is most people aren't using their time appropriately to the extent that they can.
Mhm.
And I think there are times where, if you're leaving from home and you're heading to pick your child from work, before you get out of the car, you could do a quick, mental reset. You can say an affirmation to yourself. You can do a quick sort of meditation or presence meditation for yourself. And so what I found is there are ways to incorporate some of these practices and they can provide a huge amount of benefit. You just want to expose people to it because once they're exposed, they're like, wow, Chaz, Neville, I do feel better. I didn't realize that small little thing could make me feel better. There it is. I can control how I feel. Nobody ever taught me that I can control how I feel. People don't teach you that unless you go actively seek it through pain or you hear about it through inspiration. And most people don't spend thousands of dollars to go to a Tony Robbins up and down rah rock concert, a personal development speaker that most people have heard of. Most people find out about it through pain, through burnout, like I did, or ending up in the hospital with high blood pressure because we're not taking care of ourselves.
Yep, that is Those are very good points there. I mean, this means I might have to cut my Netflix hour watching. Maybe I can't binge watch. Then I can slip that 5 minutes in. So many leaders chase success and they neglect their well-being. How do you help leaders make success feel as good as it looks? So it may seem one way and you're really kind of selling the product, but how do you kind of make them lean into it, you know?
Yeah, it's a good question. So that, that's one of my sayings, which is I help people um, make success feel as good as it looks. Because in the DMV area and the city area in particular,
Mhm.
when you first meet somebody, I was just having a conversation about this, especially in the DMV area. The first question that they're going to ask you is, "What do you do?" It's not
Bingo,
what you are.
bingo. Who are you?
It's what do you do? So we're already caught in this achievement, goal oriented, who do you know? What have you accomplished? What type of car do you have? And our entire lives and our nervous systems are literally programmed to achieve, to prove for your self-worth, and also prove to other people on who you are. And
Mhm.
what I've determined is success is not about the material items that you accumulate. Success is about inner well being. How do you feel inside when you wake up in the morning? In 2017, when I was burnt out, depressed, waking up to a job that I was just paying the bills, I was sweating
Mhm.
and I was fearful of my day. I had a BMW 6 speed M Sport red leather interior, beautiful car. Alpine white. It was my favorite car. I had a condo looking over the Potomac. I had my $100,000 salary, and yet I was stressed, depressed, and unhappy. Somebody please tell me what's going on. So I think the point is we want to make sure that we're doing the inner work that's required to have a full life. And the saying that I always say is we need to focus on being well instead of doing well.
I love that. Love that.
So much of our lives are focused on doing well rather than being well. But if we flip it, what tends to happen is life becomes more joyful. People want to be around you. If you're in business, more business opportunities want to be around you because you're happy, you're joyful. People see that inner light within you, and you have that glow because you're taking care of the number one most important asset, yourself. And we have not been taught this. And it's so interesting because I think when you are taught this, it's almost like a revelation. Life becomes a game. You feel like you're cheating in life because you know how to take care of yourself and you're showing up much more effectively than people that don't. And I think that is the purpose of trying to really introduce these techniques to people, to leaders, to moms, to dads, to leaders of communities, because it can completely restructure your life on how you feel. So, you want those material items, you want success to look good,
Mhm.
but here's the thing. Success can also feel good as well. And that's the purpose of the work that I do, to help success feel as good as it looks, not just look good.
I like that. And if I paraphrase a little bit, it's almost like you're going for the golden ring. If you're not careful, you can lose your momentum, and the golden ring can become a golden handcuff instead. You know. So just making sure you have that balance to correct. So, is there a small shift that leaders can do today to kind of close the gap? Of looking good. I mean, doing the things they want. I mean, maybe the 50 minutes or 20 minutes of meditation. You may have mentioned 5 before, but there are other things that they can do overall to kind of shorten that gap where they can see some benefit and press forward.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things. I think we don't realize how much stress we can mitigate prior to the day starting. So an example would be, I think a lot of us have a lot of demands and tasks that we have to do at work, whether on the job or as an entrepreneur or as a leader. One of the biggest benefits that I offer to folks is plan your day before the day starts. Figure out your top 5, top 6 things that you need to accomplish before the day starts. And that could be as simple as the night before, write out 6 things that you know you need to accomplish, prioritize them. Do not, and then 1, 2, 6, right? 1 through 6. And then the next morning, you start with task number 1 and you don't move to task 2 until you finish task number 1. Now, you'd be surprised how many people cannot do that with the amount of attention deficit disorder that a lot of us have because of
Right,
the
right. But
distraction.
but my boss might stop by and put 3 more things on my list I didn't anticipate unless they call you. But I have had bosses in the past email over the weekend. I was thinking about you, and I added 3 more things for your list for Monday.
Well, that's true too. We have to be adaptable, but I think, and then there's another point to that where it's you want to make sure you're communicating to your leadership. Hey, here are the 6 things that I have to do today. If you don't feel as though that these are priority, I can move them, but here's what I'm working with. So communicating that back to your leader is really important. But just off the span of reducing stress and managing your own demands, planning out your day and your 6 top 6 things that you want to do before the day starts has been really critical for me, and that's what I offer to clients. And it's very easy. It helps to reduce stress. You feel good, and when you get that top one thing done, and it's 8:30, 9 o'clock, or 10 a.m., you feel like you're on top of the world. And this is what I'm talking about. How can we optimize our life to feel more joyful, more productive, and to show up much more effectively in life? This is one of the ways to do so, and it's just a simple technique, but it has a lot of impact on your life. I do have another tool that I offer that's very easy, and I probably definitely pulled it from a book, but there are a lot of transitional periods that we go through in our lives, whether it be heading to the office, leaving the office and heading to work, leaving an office space and heading to another office space. These are sort of like transitional periods. One of the things that you can do is sort of take a breath before you step into that room. Say to yourself, how do I want to show up in this room? Right? Become more present. Oftentimes, what tends to happen is we carry stress from another conversation into
Mhm,
the
mhm.
next room, or we have a fight with our spouse at home and we bring that stress into work, or we have a tough conversation at work and we bring that stress unconsciously to our significant other at home. So typically, one of the things I offer to leaders and entrepreneurs, anybody who's a high achiever, is set time aside within these transitional periods and say, release some stress right now. I'm going to do a quick breath work. I'm going to do a meditation, something that can make you feel more present. And then just gently say to yourself, how do I want to show up when I step into this house today? How
Hmm.
do I want to show up when I step into work to be an effective leader? Very simple, but very pragmatic. And it helps you to direct your thoughts to be more conscious of how you want to show up so you're not unconsciously carrying stress that is affecting you, but also will affect the other person when you're heading to and from different places.
I love that. It's kind of like if you're not careful, it's almost like being a fireman going from one fire to another fire without having the opportunity to shift gears and get your brain together. So I do like that transitional thing. I've actually worked with senior leaders to have like and now it resonates with me better, travel time. So maybe that travel time is when they're trying to get in the mental work together and figure out what person they need to be for the next meeting or the next opportunity.
Yeah, yeah. And, since I've been doing it, I've been quite surprised at the benefits that I get out of it. It makes you more conscious, it makes you more aware. And, you're really able to put your best foot forward no matter what space you're in, or at least try to. It gives you a better chance when you're more conscious and aware. And that's one of the things I think, why I think this work is so important is I think oftentimes in life we're thrown into life and we don't have the tools to operate it as effectively as we could unless you go seek them. And when you do go seek them and you start incorporating it, you say, wow, life's getting a little bit more joyful. I'm able to handle stress more effectively. My relationship's getting a lot better with my spouse. Job, it's a little stressful, but I can manage. I have a tool to fall back on that. There's some joy right there. And then you start to see some of that benefit and you start to say to yourself, wait a minute. Okay, feeling kind of good. What else can I do? And then you start to say, what else can I accomplish? How else can I help somebody? How else can I show up more effectively for my kids? How else can I show up more effectively for my spouse? And what tends to happen is you have a much more amount of energy capacity and mental bandwidth to focus on others. And every spiritual tradition talks about how, the more that you help others, the more that you actually genuinely help yourself and the happier you get. So it's actually this, reciprocating energy that happens throughout your life. And, that's when life gets fun because you're able to manage who you are, show up more effectively of yourself, give more to others. And then as you give more to others, whether it be time, resources, or just presence, they feel it and you get it in return.
Well, this is a good transition to the next question. Can you share an experience of someone that you've helped through your techniques, through your coaching, and how that helped them to achieve more of a balance?
Yeah, I won't get into the specifics of a specific client just to be mindful, but I will tell you, I've worked with numerous, I would call sort of like professors at organizations at universities and high burnout. They're constantly producing papers.
Hmm.
They're trying to reach tenure, or maybe they have tenure and they're trying to sustain their performance. And one of the things that I find, particularly women, people of color, even if you come from a blue collar family, there is this unconscious guilt of taking care of themselves. So, in other words, they feel guilty for resting
Hmm.
or they feel guilty for taking their foot off the brake. And what I find, and it's actually a term that I came up with called sacrificial guilt syndrome, which basically people feel guilty because they know that their ancestors or their parents have sacrificed for them and where they are now. So they have to constantly work, but they're not taking care of themselves. So interesting enough, a lot of my clients, they come to me and they say, I don't have a lot of balance in my life. I want more joy. I want more happiness, but I also want to be more productive. Can I do both? And the answer is yes, because science is proving it. And I've seen a lot of my clients. So one of the things that I help them with is, why do you work so hard? Where's this all coming from? What are your beliefs about working hard? What are your beliefs about burnout? And I think one of the things that I've seen over time is once they start to change their relationship with productivity, change their relationship with stress, introduce some of these tools, they start to change, but it makes them more effective in their personal and professional life.
Right.
I'll give you a quick example is one of the ladies I was working with, very much a high achiever. One of the things that she wanted to do was create more balance in her life. It was very hard for her to take off of work because she just always felt like she had to be on, right? And I'll never forget the time where she mentioned to me that I took Friday off and I made sure that
Hmm. Hmm.
people took care of the work that needed to be done during Friday, but I took Friday off. I'm renting a car and I'm going to go have fun and have vacation with some of my family. And she was so happy. Now, it was very new for her. Her
Hmm.
nervous system said, "Wait a minute, what are you doing? You're not working?" But she felt so happy and excited to be able to say, what are the things that I want to do to
Hmm.
help myself? And ironically, once she started to set in some of these practices, leaving when the day ends, taking walks around the park, being more mindful of her schedule, doing a morning routine, she got better at her job. She was able to accomplish things in half the time.
Really?
And she would be more present with some of her students. She would feel more comfortable speaking up to leadership. And I've seen this time and time again. We're not exposed to these tools until you go seek them. And that just happens to be an example. And another example is some of the clients I work with, they're in sales and they're trying to reach the president's club, which basically means you have to obtain a certain amount of sales within a region and they give you a free trip somewhere as part of a thank you. And one of the things I told my client was, okay, you have a significant amount of stress. You have goals that you want to achieve. I'm going to ask you to do this every morning. What I'd like you to do is to do a quick meditation. It could be 5-10 minutes. I want you to visually see yourself making those calls. I want you to visually in your mind's eye see yourself accomplishing your goals in terms of making the sales calls and then also getting on the presidential club. Eventually, he did that for a series that we worked together probably about 2 months, and he was able to make that presidential club.
Nice.
Now, whether it was just that tool or some of the other ones, it doesn't matter. We got you results.
Nice.
I think it's important that we give yourself a fighting chance to, if that is what you want, here are some of the practices that I know that can help get you there. Because we're trying to increase the percentages of a better life experience. And you want to find the tools that can help you to do that, and I think utilizing those tools are incredibly helpful.
I hope you sign a non-disclosure agreement, some type of residual income. I'm going to get 20% of your income from the President Club in perpetuity. Maybe you should put that in your future contracts.
Now, it always comes back around regardless.
Oh, that's true. But that's pretty good. That's very, very, very good there. So Looking ahead, what upcoming projects or initiatives that you're most excited about right now? Because you seem like a high energy guy. Things about you evolve over time, which you probably did in January, different than maybe August. But you have some things on the horizon that you're really excited about for now through the end of the year.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question. I think right now, we just finished up our back to school mental wellness workshop in Southeast DC for middle school youth. So we put a lot of time and effort there through our nonprofit Positively Caviar. Since that's over now, one of the big things that I'm working on right now, something that you mentioned, is the TEDx that I have coming up for TEDx Warrington in Warrington, Virginia on October 25th. And my topic is all about how rest is not a reward. It's a radical act of self-trust, and basically helping people to come to realize that you deserve to rest and you deserve the care and nourishment that your mind and body, soul needs so that you can show up more effectively and joyful in life. And so it talks a little bit about my story, about my ancestors, and basically how we were able to track down my great-great-great-grandfather, who was born in Sparta, Georgia, on the William Hurt plantation. He was born enslaved in 1828. And I'm going through basically the story of, they didn't have the ability to
Hmm.
rest,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
how epigenetic inheritance in terms of behaviors can affect sort of your future generations, how that affects us, especially people of color, women, even if you come from a blue collar family, first generational professionals, how that affects, you taking care of yourself and feeling the sacrifices that your ancestors have made. So anyway, that's the
No,
TEDx
that's great.
talk that I'm really excited about. Kind of nervous, but very excited because I think the message resonates with people. And then, I published a book 2 years ago titled Success Starts Within, Achieve Your Potential Through Radical Self-Care. I do have a free chapter out there for listeners. You can go to chazzscott.com, CHAZZSCOTT.com/free chapter. And that's, if you care about any of the stuff that I've kind of put out, or don't believe anything that I'm saying, you can take a free read, no charge, with some of those principles that have really helped me and others. But yeah, other than that, that's sort of my main focus right now.
So, how do you, just kind of just a follow-up question. So, how do these projects tie back to the mission of your company? I mean, you're doing the great things in DC school systems as far as trying to back to school. You're doing this outstanding, and I saw the preview for the TED Talk. It was amazing. So I know it's probably even more polished for coming up. But how do all these different activities and your coaching tie back to the mission of your overall company?
The nonprofit or the LLC?
The LLC.
Okay, yeah. Well, so a lot of the coaching that I do, in terms of Supermenum, it's the consulting firm that I run. A lot of the work that I do, I think I mentioned it, the healthcare industry is particularly interested in how to obtain more resilience, more self-care, to buy down mishaps within the healthcare space. So I do a lot of seminars to help the healthcare space, as well as leaders and organizations, be able to manage stress, but also help with employee retention. And I think, one of the things that is critically important in an organization is being able to set up systems and practices, organizational values that you can retain really top. And what you find is in many organizations, it's the Pareto principle. 20% of the people within an organization do 80% of the work. And those 20%, they don't stay long because they're doing all the work. So how do we keep people that are high performers within organizations to ensure that they're taking care of their mind, they're taking care of their body, they know how to delegate, they know how to set up their day effectively, because that has a filtering effect, an effect across the entire organization, and it helps with employee retention. So that's the work that I do. And, with my book, Success Starts Within, and leading seminars. And it's also directly tied to the TEDx talk that I have coming up about taking care of yourself and rest and radical self-care too.
So, couple of a follow-up question for that. So, Superminimum is there kind of the genesis of the name for your company? I was just kind of curious. I should have asked that up front, but it was always in the back of my mind. I think this is a good segue to kind of ask the kind of the meaning of the company name. It may be super momentum, but I want to be presumptuous and think that's what it is. I could be completely wrong.
Yeah. So Supermenum, it's definitely Latin, if I recall, but there is An organization. We live in the DMV area. There's an organization called NRO, National Reconnaissance Office, and they have a slogan. I think it's called Ultra something, but it means above and beyond. I can't remember what the actually Latin term is. Anyway, the point is, because of the mindset leadership work that I do, and knowing what I know about the mind and body and stuff like that, I wanted to create some type of name that sort of signified sort of reaching your highest self.
Okay.
So supermenum stands for above mind,
Nice.
meaning we have more control over our lives than what we realize. So my goal is to help people find the tools that they need to gain more control over their mind and their body, as well as their relationship with life itself. So yeah, supermenum stands for above mind.
What do you see Supermenum being in the next 5 to 10 years, as far as kind of your offerings, or where you think the company, or where you're driving the company to go?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, how do I scale this impact? I don't think I can do it by myself. I mean, I'd like to get to a point where I have a team. We can do more corporate gigs and do more trainings and seminars. I'd like to get to a point where I could potentially position myself as an industry expert in this space to help people. I think as though that I have a unique blend of sort of blending a lot of this experience, especially being a black male, and there's not enough of us, not enough people that look like me in this space, and we need more to speak about these critical topics. Yeah, eventually, I want a team. I want to be able to broaden this impact, because I know it affects all of us.
Hmm.
And, I'd like to get to a point where I can have sort of a self-sustaining organization to create sustainable impact.
Oh, that's great. You mentioned a little bit throughout our podcast here for the Lighthouse podcast on resources, but do you want to kind of make sure, and definitely you can email me and we can put this in the show notes on resources? You mentioned your book. I know you have coaching, but do you just want to talk about those overall resources? Maybe you have an online thing. I went to your website. I know you have a couple of downloadable books also. There are many books that are separate from your book. But I mean, just want to talk about overall resources that you have as offerings for Supplementum and also your nonprofit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, well, with the nonprofit, a lot of the work we do is just with middle schoolers. So we do fee for service workshops. But for anybody on this call, I think heading to my website, chazscott.com, there's a link there and I can send it to you. But I have sort of a proven tools to work smarter, rest without guilt, and break free from burnout without losing momentum. A free workbook on how to set goals and build great habits and destroy bad ones. And then the secret to getting more done in less time. So these are just free books and resources that I offer. All you have to do is put in your email on my website. Additionally, I have a newsletter. It's called Beyond the Hustle, and it's to give people tools to rest without guilt and achieve more and stress less, to really talk about sort of the other side of what health and success looks like, to really take care of you, the number one most important asset. So I have a LinkedIn newsletter as well as a online newsletter on my website that you get through email. I also do coaching. I have a 90-day program where I help people rise and reclaim their life and their energy. It's called the Rise and Reclaim 90-Day Blueprint.
Okay.
And one of the things that we do is just to help people really understand that there is a framework out there to take a hold of your life and gain more control over the stress and circumstance that you're going through. So it's a three-phased approach on how to live a much more effective life, to rise out of burnout and reclaim your life and energy. Some of the clients really love it. Eventually, it'll be a totally online service where you can just watch videos. But right now, it's one-on-one coaching for 90 days. Uh,
Nice.
and then I mentioned the free book. If you go to chascott.com/free chapter, you can read my book, Success Starts Within, Achieve Your Potential Through Radical Self-Care.
Okay, great. I really appreciate it. I will probably get my own plug here. I don't like to drink coffee while I'm doing this, but I do have a internal sponsor. His business. He is definitely a game changer, so I will highly recommend you reaching out to him. I was kind of intrigued on this night. It's kind of like a 90-day boot camp, so that sounds like an intriguing. So maybe there's some things you're in the DMV area. You don't have to necessarily be in the DMV. You can be in any area, and you on that maze trying to do it that 100 miles per hour, blowing your horn when I turn in front of you. I mean, going crazy, and maybe needs some decompression time to get your lifestyle back on more even keel. So I really appreciate the time, and definitely we will definitely put the resources along with the link here. And Chaz, any additional final words for the Lighthouse podcast audience? You mentioned how to reach you, but some additional words for the audience.
Yeah, Neville, I appreciate the opportunity. I think my biggest thing is my goal is to give people hope, to give people resources, and to let them know that they can change the quality of their lives. You can become more productive, you can become happier, and you can you can wake up joyful and happy and reduce stress. My goal is to help people discover that and continue to sort of advance that mission. So really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And I guess you're number 7 for a reason. I'm normally not into numbers, but I was very lucky to get you today. And I think this has probably been the best podcast of all time for the Lighthouse podcast, because you list a lot of great tools and actionable tools that you can use from you go to the podcast, do them day one, and definitely help to change your momentum and your lifestyle. So I appreciate your time and your insights. And I could tell that you definitely